So yeah, hello and welcome to the currently unnamed podcast for church. This is my very wonderful guest, Shemi, here to talk with us today about what she does on her course and being a Christian on her course and what that means. So Shemi, I just want to start off with what ultimately made you choose to go down the route of psychology? Was there like a defining moment in when you picked psychology? Did your faith have anything to do with that? And was there any other options on the table that you were potentially hoping to do, but ultimately chose psychology instead?
Okay, so psychology I actually didn't want to do until I got to sixth form, because obviously I did my bachelor's degree in psychology and I'm doing my master's in counseling and psychotherapy. But initially I wanted to be a doctor because always knew I wanted to go into healthcare. I knew that I wanted to help to, make people better and everything. And, so I initially thought doctor was what was, my future career plan and everything. But I think looking at it, it was obvious that I didn't have the passion. I feel like I had the desire to do it, and it looked very good to just be able to call myself doctor. I wanted to be a dermatologist. But I think from doing like interviews and everything, like, it was so obvious that I didn't have the passion and the drive that you need to be a doctor, because it's not an easy job, And I think it was when I was in sixth form and we did like some career test thing. And I think everything that I chose ultimately led to psychology, because it was obvious that I wanted to not only help make people physically better, but I wanted to help them take care of their mental health. And I wanted to just understand what makes people tick, like what makes people, what are the behavioral differences between different types of people. And so it was that made me choose my psychology degree, and I think it was the best decision that I ever made, even though it was not an easy degree ever. So
Yeah, awesome. I've got a follow-up question to that, and that's do you think you'll go after your master's, do you think you'll go to do a doctorate as well, so then you can actually get that, being able to call yourself Dr. Shemi?
Honestly, I feel like it's so tempting, because like I think I've had a lot of questions about that. And honestly, I feel like it depends, because after my master's, the training allows me to qualify as a psychotherapist. Well, hopefully. But then I feel like if God has other plans and he leads me to a doctorate, then I wouldn't mind doing it, because honestly, like, I'm not in a rush to get out of the whole like student bubble.
Yeah.
Like, I think I don't know, even after doing like 5 years of uni already, I don't know if it's in his plan for me to do a doctorate, then I'll do it. And that doctor title it sounds really nice, to be honest.
It does as well, doesn't it?
That's really nice, but yeah. So it depends. If I end up working as a psychotherapist after my master's, then that might be the plan.
So working as a psychotherapist, that would be mostly working with people rather than research based, would it?
Yeah, it'd be very practical, because that was initially that was why we started like placements and everything, to get us to work in a more professional setting. And it involves like actually being a therapist, like actually like, being in a room with someone and having them tell you all of the issues and everything, and you using all the skills that we learn on the course to kind of help to, communicate with that person, basically. And we have done a lot of practice within the course. We've done practice with each other. And yeah, so had I started placement, I would have started doing that more with actual clients. Yeah.
How does it feel to be in that place where you're actually able to help people? Is it really, really fulfilling? And have you done it long enough that you feel like you have a really good grasp on what you're doing and how you're operating?
Honestly, I feel like even though I've had a lot of practice on my course, I still don't feel like I have like enough of the grasp, because each client is completely different and has completely different needs. And so there are times when I'm like, I have like a pretend client, basically, and I feel like, yes, I'm on this, and they seem to be responding well. And there's other times that like I seem stuck, and they've presented to me a problem, and I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to respond to this, like I don't, and but I think one thing that my teachers told us, that it's like, you will never be like a perfect therapist. Like even she, when she finished,
Hmm.
she didn't think that she, you know, became better until she'd done it a few more times, even after she'd
Yeah.
finished her. So, you know, it's part of the learning process. And as long as you use the core skills that they've taught us,
Hmm.
then, you know, should be fine.
Hmm. Right. I had a follow-up question and I can't remember what it was, but it's good to see that you're really passionate about it. And so where would you like to work? Would it be kind of around Manchester, or if you do decide to finish your master's and not go into a doctorate, would it be somewhere like Manchester? Yeah. Or how far are you willing to go? Or exactly?
I think I'm happy staying like in the north. Like I was thinking like
Mm,
Liverpool, because that was initially where my placement that I, you know,
mm,
signed up for, I passed the interview and everything. That was where it's meant to be. So I don't, yeah, I think I would like to stay in like Liverpool or anything. But I mean, if an opportunity for me comes somewhere else, then I'll be happy to move there. But for
mhm.
now, I think I'm happy staying like around like the north, like, you know, Lancashire region.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
also earlier mentioned God's plan for you. Um,
Mm.
and I just wanted to ask how, being a psychologist, there's actually, from what I've heard and from what little knowledge I have, from my own classes at university, and also doing a little bit of analytical psychology on like Carl Jung and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that goes contrary to uh, what we believe as Christians. How do you go in addressing that? Is there a way to harmonize both the psychological stuff that you're taught and also your faith? Yeah, we'll just go with that for now, because there's another part I want to get onto after that.
Okay. I would say, yeah, I have noticed since doing on the course, there are a lot of things that kind of contrary to, you know, my belief, like, you know, like why humans behave in different ways and everything, like, you know, and like, you know, sometimes psychology says that humans determine their own morality. There's no like higher being and everything. Like humans are the ones that drive that and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And you know, obviously, like being a Christian, I have my own like
Yeah,
I have like, you know, what I've grown up believing, and what I believe, you know, is what God says about how humans behave and why they act that way. And so sometimes I find myself during certain classes like holding my tongue and everything, because I feel like if I sometimes if I bring faith into it,
mm,
it's not that I don't want to, but sometimes I know that it would end to it would cause like a never ending, like, you know,
yeah,
arguments and
hmm,
everything, because I know that psychology has like set, very very set, you know, beliefs, even though they're all different, they're all theories at the
yeah,
end. There's like one defining, you know,
hmm,
but those theories are very, people believe in them so strongly. And
hmm,
you know, there are some practices that we do, um you know, sometimes like, you know, certain kinds of mindfulness and everything that sometimes I choose not to take part in.
hmm,
I kind of just let everyone else do it, and then I
yeah,
join in when doing something else, because that is contrary to my faith. So
mm,
I kind of have to
yeah,
learn how to, you know, navigate stuff like that. And also sometimes during client work, they
mm,
encourage us to bring that kind of mindfulness into it. Oh, why don't you, you know, the client is feeling this way, why don't you bring mindfulness into it? And sometimes like I have to be like, oh, maybe when I become my own like therapist, like I'm
mm,
gonna choose what I bring in, and I'll bring in other things that don't have to involve things that
yeah.
are contrary to my faith. So
Mm. You actually kind of answered my question as well, because I was going to ask like how do you bring that in into like a clinical setting? Um, do you have you ever had the you've had like urges to have you ever had urges to bring faith into with a client or something like that? And do you feel as though you're the person has missed out something if you haven't brought faith into that scenario or into trying to help them? Does that make sense?
yeah, that makes sense. I would say that there are times that I do have urges to bring in faith, because I feel like me, um, obviously when I'm like helping out a friend, it's very different to when I'm doing a client. Because with a friend, obviously I have a lot of Christian friends, and sometimes like they present to
Mhm,
me a problem, and I'm like, sometimes I like pray with them, and I'm like, okay, you know,
mm,
you know, you might feel this way, but this is how God would feel. God wouldn't, have that same, you know, belief that you do. God is not mad at you, but that, that kind of thing, and encouraging them to,
Mhm.
encouraging faith basically. But then when it comes to a client, sometimes like I want to be like, oh, it's it's okay, God has a plan for you, God, but I can't do that because you
Yeah.
can't bring in faith to your
Mhm.
practice. And I feel like it would even be, I think sometimes it would confuse them more, especially if they don't have a background. And there
Mhm.
are like opportunities for Christian
Mhm.
psychotherapists, but obviously, like, I'm not going to be registered as a Christian
Yeah.
psychotherapist. But even that, there are ways that you can still provide care for someone without bringing in faith. So
Mm.
by being empathetic, by being understanding, by being there for them, I feel like you are using elements from, like, like being a Christian without
Mhm.
explicitly it being like, you're
Mm.
without it seeming like you're trying to shove your faith to
Yeah.
them, and eventually end up pushing them away.
Mm.
So I think just
You're
being like
yeah.
a good therapist is
Mhm.
is good.
So you kind of, just to reiterate your point, you're showing faith through your actions rather than necessarily what you're saying. But I suppose that
Exactly.
that does come a part of that. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Um,
Yeah.
how has it been? This is a bit of a different topic, but how has it been working from home? And of course, we all miss you, and it's really great
Oh,
to see
thank
you
you.
on Wednesday nights um, at Blueprints. But we all miss kind of the in-person stuff like that. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think the last person that saw you in person was Kate
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
year. And how has it been working from home? Do you feel like it's claustrophobic, or do you feel quite safe at home? Is Do you prefer that to being at university or being on campus at all?
I definitely prefer being on campus. Like, I miss, like,
Mm.
I think I took advantage of the just the feeling of being with everyone, whether it's
Mm.
with people at Blueprints in church or people on my course. Like, I feel like, I kind of miss having that, because I think studying for example, studying from home, I would say it's even more draining, because
Mm.
at uni we were in different places, sometimes different rooms. We could go on breaks, you go out, you go, like,
Yeah.
have lunch with your course mates and everything. So we're like scattered around sometimes, and sometimes we do activities in the room and everything. But, like, I feel like online it's like I'm sat on one position
Mm.
staring at a screen, and, like, sometimes my seminars are from like 10:30 to like 5, and by the time I'm done, like, I don't want to do anything else for the rest of the
Yeah.
night. And so it has been more draining with the course. But then but with the Blueprints and everything, I feel like, sometimes seeing everyone's faces, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just wish I was with them, because I
Yeah.
just miss it. And so yeah, I definitely would prefer being with everyone in person.
Mm. Oh, yeah. uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I had follow-up questions, and I've forgotten some of them.
Okay.
This is a bit of a lull that we can always edit out. How is the workload? How is it all going, if you don't mind me asking?
I'll say it's going okay. I feel like I think I mentioned in Blueprints last time we had it, that I have this sense of peace at the moment.
Mm.
So I'm not,
Good.
I haven't had any breakdowns yet over my assignments like I did with the ones last year that I had to do online. But I don't know. I feel like I know that if I stay on top of things, I will be fine. And
Mhm.
me not starting placement yet, it kind of gave me a sense of relief, because I was like, oh, that
Mm.
means that there's less pressure. It means I have time to
Mhm.
work on some of my like my dissertation and everything.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting, because I told my course mates yesterday morning. I told them, I was like, guys, I don't start placement until this time, but I feel weirdly calm
Mhm.
about it. And they were like, oh my gosh, Shemi, like, how are you so calm? Because if it was me, I'd be rocking in the corner, I'd be like crying. And I'm like, the thing is, I don't have time to do those things. That's the
Yeah.
thing. I don't have time to have a breakdown, you
Mm.
know? So yeah. So I'm just hoping that I remain peaceful about things.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you haven't done placement during COVID yet? No?
No. I did have my interview, which, I passed, and they
Yeah.
told me like, but then it wasn't until my tutors told me like, oh, you
Mm.
can't, you actually can't start placement yet because of some things like, you had an extension on this and that assignment. So it's everything, the board has to decide,
Yeah.
like just different complicated things. So yeah.
Do you think what sort of things would you have to how do I word this? How this is going to take a lot of editing.
It's
I feel
okay.
so. Yeah. At least you won't have to do it.
Oh, I
you
know.
got enough on your plate. I was gonna say something and I've completely forgotten. I mean, we're past 15 minutes, so I won't keep you for too much longer.
I'm quite enjoying this actually. I think this is
Really.
been a really nice chat. Yeah.
So this is really going back to that previous topic. So whenever you go, I can always edit it in different ways.
Okay.
So whenever you are in class and you're doing psychological stuff, and that's a really terrible way of putting it, but you're in class and you're studying psychology and someone brings up something that contradicts your faith, are you just really dismissive of it, or do you feel as though you have to consider it or try and like bring it in together, as in like, are you able to overlap these elements with believing in God and stuff like that, or do you feel as though they can never mix at all?
Oh, I feel like there's been many times where I felt comfortable bringing in faith. I can't think of specific examples. I wish I had specific examples, but they have been. And there have been times where I knew that, oh, if I bring in faith, everyone's gonna go crazy, and oh, I wish I had some examples. But I feel like certain theories that talk about like um higher being, for example, and how sometimes that determines morality and everything, because when it comes to the topic of morality, sometimes it's nice to squeeze in like elements of my faith and everything, because I feel like that gives a better understanding to people
Yeah.
of why I am believing it so strongly, because there are certain there's certain sources of morality.
Morality, that,
Yeah,
yeah.
and psychology allows for different people to have different, but there are some things where it's like, no, it's all just behavioral, and it's all evolutional and everything. And sometimes Christians, no, not Christians, and it's like, that's why people act in different ways, and we're all just kind of like, I don't know, it's like different things like that, where I know that sometimes like there's no point in me bringing faith, because I know that it's completely different to what everyone else thinks. So sometimes I have to take a back seat, but other times I do like bring in my faith.
That's cool. I'm glad that you're able to do that as well. Are you the only one who has a faith? I don't mean just Christian, but like Muslim or Sikh or Buddhist. Not Buddhist isn't really a faith, but anything like that, or Jewish or anything like that.
No, I think there are actually like two other people on my course. I think one is Catholic, another one is Christian, and I think a few others have like Christian upbringings. Maybe they aren't Christian anymore, aren't explicitly so. But I think I'm the only one that has been kind of vocal about it in different settings. Like I remember sometimes we have these moments where we sit in a circle and everyone kind of talks about how they're feeling. We like to check in on my course a lot.
Yeah.
Like, how's everyone doing today? And sometimes people have talked about being stressed, like, oh, they feel like they want to cry because they're overwhelmed with assignments and everything, and like they just feel like it's never ending. And there was one time that I was like, I feel stressed too, but I feel this peace, like, because I was like, guys, because I'm a Christian, and I you know, I feel like God has been helping me with all my assignments and like stuff like that. And they were all like, wow. So they came up after to tell me, they were like, oh, Shemi, I wish I could join your Christian group because you always seem to be so happy and have so much peace and everything. And I was like, it's not me, it's Jesus. So yeah, so it's kind of like they know that I'm a Christian and they know that a lot of my perspectives are faith-based, but thankfully they don't, you know, they respect that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Does the course itself views belief as delusional or something like that? I've heard that term used. I don't know whether it was someone like Freud who said it, but does like the actual study of psychology often dismiss religion entirely?
I would say so. Like I would say it depends on the theory. I can't remember exactly what specific theories because I think my psychology degree I did like 2 years ago, but I have heard that term before, delusional, or they just think, I think certain theorists like Carl Jung, Freud, certain theorists do not like the idea of a God. They don't like the idea of like a higher being, so they kind of argue against it sometimes. And so I think sometimes it's picking and choosing, because there are a lot of people in my course that are fans of these theorists, especially Jung, and sometimes it's like choosing not to be offended or anything, because I mean these are people who really are just doing their job, like they're theorists. They study things, they study people and everything, so sometimes they just have what they believe is what they believe, so I can't really be offended or anything, because it's not like they're teaching people to abandon their belief, especially those who don't agree with it. It's just like that's just what they think. And so sometimes I just choose to believe in the part of the theories that make sense to me, that will help me pass my course. Other things, other parts of the theories, I'm like, I don't have to believe in that if I don't need to.
Does that other parts, the parts that you don't agree with, does that have an impact on the way you view the theory at all, or the way that the theory itself is able to work and functions? I don't know if I worded that right, but does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like sometimes it makes me think. I feel like sometimes I just think, wow, this is absolutely ridiculous what this person feels like. You know, like I don't know if you've heard of the Oedipus complex.
Oh, yes, I have.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
That. It's just, you know, sometimes like Freud, but I think it's like a collective thing where we all kind of make fun of Freud, and we're all like, you know, like his theory is called psychodynamics, and it does have a lot of sense when he's not talking about, you know, boys having feelings for their moms and everything. When it's like other things in his theories about how like sometimes a person's action is sometimes like how a person behaves is dependent on like their upbringing and their past and everything. And so that part of his theory, like I think makes sense and everything, because sometimes you need to look into a person's past and a person's like behavior and upbringing to determine why they act in different ways. And so I don't know, I feel like it kind of makes the course more interesting when there are things that you do believe in and there are things that you don't believe in. And I feel like with certain other theories, I feel like my favorite theorist is Jung, because a lot of the things that he talks about, like I think I completely agree. When he talks about dreams a lot and how sometimes dreams have like deeper meanings and, you know, like that kind of thing, because I'm someone who was like a very, very vivid dreamer. So elements like that make sense to me. So yeah, I wouldn't say it changes my view of the theorist, but I think it just makes it more interesting to me, because I love learning about all parts of the theory.
Awesome. I'm just gonna ask you one last question, and then I think we'll leave it there. So what's kind of like your favorite thing? What is the thing in psychology that you find really fascinating or really enjoy? Is it something like dreams or behavior, like as a whole, or because I know there's certain, I say, celebrity psychologists, like a guy called Jonathan Haidt, focuses on disgust, or like the function of disgust, or how people react in disgust. Is there something like that that you really enjoy or really focus on, or is it you just enjoy the entire realm itself?
Well, I would say it's almost like I enjoy the whole thing, because I
Mm,
feel like with each year that I've done my psychology course and also psychotherapy, like it's like a different realm that I'm being like
mm,
brought into, and each one is completely different. Sometimes and I would say I really enjoyed I enjoyed child psychology a lot, like behavioral psychology. I also really enjoy like stuff about like, different mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, because I don't know if you know about the DSM-5 or the DSM-4. It's basically a book of different psychopathologies, and it
right.
explains like it has different so for each mental illness, so maybe like anxiety, it has different things that make you determine if a person has anxiety or not. So because that's what professionals use to diagnose people. So it's a
Mhm.
diagnosis tool basically.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, oh, if this person is presenting these symptoms, like that they're most likely to have OCD, and they're most likely to have this. I think that is so interesting to me, because
Hmm.
sometimes like it allows me to carry like a personal diagnostic tool within myself sometimes
Yeah.
when I'm walking around and I see people acting in different ways, and sometimes they're
Hmm.
like, this person is just weird. I'm like, no, it seems like he has this, or it seems like they
Mm.
have that. It makes me understand things like autism more, like the autism
Yeah.
spectrum more. And I'm like, now when I watch things like Big Bang Theory and I see people like Sheldon
Uh,
Cooper, I'm like,
yeah.
maybe he's on the spectrum because he's presenting these things. And
Hmm.
yeah, so I'll say it. Sometimes it depends on the topic really, but I
Mm.
enjoyed the whole thing.
Awesome. Well, Shemi, thank you for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think I've learned quite a bit, especially about you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Before we go, is there anything you'd like prayer for?
Um, I would say recently it's just been my course, just for you know better, well, time management, wisdom, for me to
Mm.
approach my dissertation more.
Yeah.
Um, just for God to help me with everything
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
Hmm. How's your family, and who are you currently living with? Is it your mom and your brother, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My brother, they're all good. Honestly, I feel like lockdown has made us much closer to each
Mhm.
other, because we pray a lot. We do a lot of fasting and prayer sessions, and we also see my grandparents like every single week, because we help to take care of them. And so, you know, we all just hang out as a family, and it's nice having them, because I would rather that than
Mm.
for me to be on my own.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
they're all good.
All right. Thanks.